Today's video, I'm going to cover BlackBerry stock because they had the Baird conference. I want to go to the high level key points in terms of the conference call, recap, and then also a reminder in terms of events coming up and plus the earnings date. We have Q1 fiscal year 2026 earnings coming up on estimated time frame, June 24th, 2025. Typically about 2 weeks prior, so I'm expecting in the next few days there's going to be a press release stating when the official date and time is. I do live stream this event, and about 10 minutes before the conference call, the earnings numbers come out. I do a quick high-level review and then go into live stream continuously into the conference call. So if you're interested in that, consider following and subscribing so be notified when that goes live. And then in terms also additional to the upcoming investor events plus the high-level key points in terms of the Baird conference, I'm going to go over the technicals a little bit as well towards the end of the video. And then in terms of the events coming up, we have the also 2025 Wells Fargo Industrial and Materials Conference. That'll be on June 12th, 2025 at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll also be live streaming this as well. And for the Baird conference, that was on June 3rd. It was Tim Foote, CFO of BlackBerry, and John Mattias, CEO of BlackBerry, fireside chat. This one's also for the 2025 Wells Fargo Industrial and Materials Conference. It's also fireside chat with Tim Foote as well again, CFO of BlackBerry, and then also Mattias, Director of QNX. So be on the lookout for that. And then for the Baird conference, by the way, I do have a replay on my channel. Be mindful, I do own shares of BlackBerry stock. Plus, what was I going to say? I'm not a professional, so please do your own due diligence and research before buying and selling. The reason I'm stating this is because I have a replay on my channel for the Baird conference. Even though I'm going over the high-level key points, I might have missed something or misinterpreted something, and at the same time own shares of BlackBerry stock, so be mindful of that while you're watching this video. So I highly encourage you to rewatch or listen to the conference call as well at the same time. This is just my key takes and opinions overall. And then in terms of technicals, again, I'll be going over it towards the end. And now for the key high-level points. So first, they went over the basics of what has happened on BlackBerry so far. So if you're in the know, you've already been caught up with it overall, plus kept up with the channel. Like I go over everything, but they just basically went over the basics. And then they said that they have two new focuses moving forward. It's to accelerate the growth of QNX and then have secure communications generate as much profit and cash as much as they can. So that's a new two focus moving forward. Then they said backlog is growing and it's sitting at 865 million and is basically about 100% margin. So 100% margin at 865 million in the backlog. Then they mentioned again that $150 million in cost has been removed in just a year. In the past, so this is a side note. So in the past, I believe it was Tim Foote, CFO of BlackBerry, he said that even though they've saved or removed or cut costs of $150 million, so cut costs, they have not seen any impact on I was going to say limiting the growth of BlackBerry overall. So usually you're kind of worried that if you cut costs, and it could cut into research and development and all that stuff, it could stunt the growth of the company. But they have not seen that affect the growth of the company at all, which is awesome. And then I like this point overall in terms of stating how much they saved plus within the year, because it shows how well this new management team has done in a little over a year now at the wheel, which is pretty awesome. Again, they're pretty much a new management team for the most part, and everything they've said they deliver on, for the most part, they have delivered on, and pretty quickly, relatively quickly. So I'm pretty excited for the future of BlackBerry. Again, be mindful though, I do own shares in the company, so be mindful of that while you're watching this video. Then they also talked about the strong balance sheet, $410 million in cash. And then Tim Foote said they'll talk about the share buyback during the earnings call, estimated again on June 24th. The only thing is I will say, so mentioned that he's going to talk about it, so I got a little bit excited. But then towards the rest of the talk, it could just be me though. It looks like more so potential share buyback potential, but more so towards merger and acquisitions for QNX potentially. But I might have misread something or something like that, misinterpreted. But that's the feel I got from it. But again, highly encourage you to watch the video just in case potentially that I'm misinterpreting something. And then they said they're improving revenue durability, which I'm taking it as potentially like stabilizing the revenue where it's quarter. And obviously the business comes in cycles, so every quarter is different. But in essence, the revenue will climb year over year, hypothetically. And there's a baseline of revenue where if it dips, it won't dip to a certain point. So improving revenue durability. Then they also talked about cost savings was focused on more in the past and still is in sight, still continuously, but growth is now more of the focus. They've mentioned this in the past in the previous management, but I still think that this management, they have a certain amount of tasks that they want to do, and they complete them, and then they move over to the next task. So this is the main focus, and I truly believe that they're actually focusing on this now, right? Now, how much growth, though, depending, because technically, even if we see growth and it's small growth, and hypothetically they're hitting their goals, right? So hypothetically they are focused on it, but what we need to see is massive growth at the same time. So there's a little bit of a mix on that portion. Then they mentioned QNX is mixed in well with the big players, and mentioned one big one being Japanese OEM. And then they're looking to expand more into going to market like robotics, medical and rail, etc. And in the previous conference, I believe they mentioned that basically they expect this to be actually bigger than the auto sector at one point, but we'll see. And then John G. Matteo said that stay tuned for QNX announcements. And then a side note, this could be anything in my opinion. What I mean is maybe like the announcement, although it will be good, still could be a small announcement at the end of the day. But again, he said stay tuned for QNX announcements overall. So just a little bit skeptical on that point, because again, the announcements could be good overall, but they just could be small announcements when he said stay tuned. And then QNX is future-proof since it could handle a lot of cores. Now, this is very important. So if you were aware of this in the past, it's nothing really new. But in case it wasn't clear in the past, so QNX handles quite a bit of cores, and then more than the other competition can, which is quite important. And Tim Foote goes over it as well. So in essence, it's like where companies can use the same software stack while only needing to update the hardware to keep advancing. So if you create a system and you have the hardware, and then you use, let's say, QNX versus the competitors. Well, QNX is basically future-proof, where even if you start having more advanced hardware, it'll still handle that more advanced hardware, and you don't need to change the software stack. So therefore, you don't need to waste more time in terms of development or switching softwares, right? Now, if OEMs want to do this, they pretty much protect themselves in terms of wasting more cost and time. But it depends. If they go to another supplier, then they have to switch over, and there's an investment, technically, hypothetically, like a wall they have to pass through, but it's still more beneficial anyway at the end of the day if the competitor is not even close. Now, this is actually a great thing because it makes QNX the smart choice for companies, so they don't have to slow down their advancements due to software and software switches during cycles if need be. Again, that's pretty beneficial because then the companies just change hardware versus a software stack. And then BlackBerry has a moat with QNX like Hypervisor, which can host other OS on top of it, but have the reliability and security of QNX, and no one comes close to maintaining the performance while doing this, right? So that's beneficial, quite beneficial as well, because you always want to have no performance lag if you're kind of doing this, and if nobody comes close, then you're pretty much the obvious pick, which leads to one of the points later on down the line where they're trying to make it the obvious choice, but I'll get to it. So they also mentioned 3 of the 5 largest global OEMs are using QNX Cabin. And then QNX Cabin is a cloud development basically for the most part. And then also BlackBerry is basically looking to make QNX the obvious choice, which was the point I was going to lead to, which is pretty awesome because you could see all the bullet points leading up to that point where almost back to when John Chen, CEO of BlackBerry, previously said, essentially QNX is almost the obvious choice. It's just OEMs at a certain point in the beginning of the development was trying to do on their own. And then obviously there's competition, et cetera, they could choose competition. But it's more so leading up with these points that QNX is going to be the obvious choice. It's just taking time. That's the only downfall. And then John G. Matteo said the pipeline has never looked better for QNX and secure communication divisions, which is awesome. And then as of now, BlackBerry does not see software. So they were asked about tariffs as well, by the way. Naturally, obviously, given the situations and like conditions of the market for the time being in terms of tariffs, because it could be a concern. As of now, BlackBerry does not see software being targeted in the tariffs, so have not seen a direct impact. And then they are monitoring the indirect impact though, and then haven't seen a significant impact at the same time, but keeping a close eye on it. Tim said BlackBerry is pretty diversified at the same time in terms of markets. So not just US markets, like Asia markets, Europe markets, et cetera, et cetera. And then now in terms of the technicals a little bit, we closed at $4.13 on the Friday of the June 6th, I believe it was. And then in terms of the graph, for the most part, in my opinion, I think we're headed to $5 US, right? Because of the following. And then also we have a baseline upward trend support level right about here. We came contact on it on November 24th. November 2024. Sorry about that. So November 2024 or October 2024 / November 2024, as well in the end of November 2024 as well again, and then recently somewhat of April 2025, and it's been hypothetically on a continuous upside. Now, can we come back down to this upward trend support level? Potentially, yeah, obviously. But given how close we are to earnings, and I think the momentum of BlackBerry, the way they're progressing, is moving forward, I think we're headed up. And if we were to come back down, it would be more to these moving averages once we pass them. Now, we are in an issue of pretty much trying to pass the 50-day moving average on the 1-year chart right about here, just to visually show you. It was the 1-year chart. 50-day moving average, which sits at $4.14. Now, we've been hovering above it and below it nonstop, if you saw it continuously a couple times. But I think, and plus, horizontally, there's a resistance level right about here, which is pretty much around the same price point if I extended it to as well. But I'm confident that we're going to pass it, again, given that we're so close to earnings. And then there's plus, I kind of forgot to mention this. So we have the investor event coming up on, June 12th, I think I mentioned it was. June 12th. We also have the earnings June 24th. And then we have the shareholders meeting as well, which I believe is on June 25th. So we have quite a bit of events, potential announcements, potentially share buyback announcement, potentially, but not necessarily announcement, but more information on it from what Tim Foote said. Again, it could be to buy, it could be to hold. There's just more clarity. We don't know 100% yet. But given all this, plus we've seen a little bit slight increase on volume, which I'll get back to later on. It's not quite as high I would like it to be, but it's still increasing nonetheless. Then I think this 50-day moving average at $4.14 won't be quite much of an issue anyway at the end of the day. And if we look at the MAC line, which indicates if we're in a bearish or bullish movement, it is indicating further upside. So recently the volumes have been more on the buy side. You can see with the green right here, this MACD line again indicates if we're in a bearish or bullish movement. For the time being, it looked like it was going to cross down to the bearish movement, indicating downside, but it has pretty much solidified to a continuation of the bearish movement. We can see the green upticks have become more solid green for both the past data points, plus it's curving back up to the upside. The 5-year chart is in the bearish movement right now, but it is about to cross over to bullish movement. Again, in my opinion, indicating further upside, right? Again, more so heading to the $5 price point range, almost $5 or somewhat in the mid $5 price point range. And then if we look at the alt chart, it got solidified in the latest data point as well to bullish movement, and it was hypothetically not dying down, but like slowing down, but then got re-solidified to stronger upside growth in terms of MAC line to the upside, right? And the data points coming in on the volume side, more on the buy side as well. Now, the downfall, I would say, again, with the moving averages first, actually, yeah, the downfall. So the downfall, in my opinion, is the volume. Although the volume is somewhat increasing as we're leading up to earnings naturally, it is not quite back to where we saw, for example, mid-February. Mid-February, we hit about $6.20, $6.30, give or take, US. And we saw volume upticks pretty much nonstop leading up to that run-up, right? Right now, for the time being, we see right now leading up to earnings a little bit increased volumes, but it is not, it's pretty much hypothetically, if you like visually see it, it almost looks like it's kind of somewhat flatlined, but not necessarily so, but it's nowhere near what we saw earlier back in leading up to mid-February. So that's the only downfall, but it's not a big deal in my opinion because the fundamentals are growing in the positive way. So hypothetically, the volume could come in later on potentially, but be aware that the volume is not quite there yet for the time being where we're leading up to February. Now, in terms of the moving averages, what we're tackling, again, $4.14 for the one-year chart, 50, actually that was a 100-day moving average. I apologize. Misspoke earlier when I said 50-day moving average. That was 100-day moving average. And then with the 5-year chart, what we're trying to hit at is $4.90 moving average. And the alt chart, we're pretty much hitting the 50-day. And then I guess you could go for 100-day as well, but 50-day is $5.26. But then when we looked at all the other resistance levels, it was pretty much ballpark of $4.90 to all the way to $5.66. Within that range, I'm expecting that we're going to be hitting that relatively soon. Now, if it will be before earnings, debatable. I think more so after earnings, as long as the earnings is not horrendous. I'm not expecting anything horrendous because the estimates that they gave out was pretty low in my opinion, but we'll see. And then again, be on the lookout for the video I'm going to be releasing in terms of what you can expect for Q1 earnings fiscal year 2026, and hopefully sometime this week coming up. And then basically we'll do year-over-year comparison, quarter-over-quarter comparison, what you can expect, street estimates, etc., plus the outlooks they provided, and do comparisons and all that stuff. But that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Take care. God bless, and peace.